the timeline for how long people are going to be there depends on whether or not anybody's going to take them.
Right.
So it could be that some people are going to be there indefinitely.
It's not an option for us to leave people here illegally anymore. American citizens have been put behind people who have chosen to come and break our laws, and that's not going to happen anymore. You know, what's interesting to me is the previous administration knew who these people were that were committing these crimes. They knew where these folks that had final removal orders were in our country, could have negotiated agreements with these other countries to take them back home, and didn't. And we saw countries like Venezuela release their prisons and their mental health
what are you doing
individual.
now?
That's CNN host and equine reporter Dana Bash going speechless after an unexpected reality check from Trump's new Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Welcome to Nerk News. I'm Nerkish, and it looks like the political hacks and establishment media really have their undies in a bunch because in conjunction with signing the Laken Riley Act, President Trump recently announced plans to use Guantanamo Bay to detain, as he puts it, the worst criminal aliens threatening the American people. And according to Scott Jennings' 80-20 rule on reactions from the left, this naturally means that pretend journalists everywhere are taking the unpopular position of going on the airwaves to side with dangerous criminals.
Do so. You and the president have said repeatedly that the worst of the worst will be held at Guantanamo. There are a few dozen people there already. I believe they're right now being held in cells formerly used to house terror suspects. So can you give more specifics about who's there right now? What crimes have they committed, and how long you're going to detain them?
So there are several planes that have transported individuals to the base, and they are in the system and the facilities that, you know, a lot of our worst terrorist criminals have been incarcerated for many years. These individuals are the worst of the worst that we pulled off of our streets.
Who are they?
Murderers, rapists. So when I was there, I was able to watch one of the flights landing and them unload about 15 different of these criminals. Those were mainly child pedophiles, those that were out there trafficking children, trafficking drugs, and were pulled off of our streets and put at this facility.
You know, only the left would find a way to get upset about those types of people getting detained in Gitmo, because for some reason establishment liberals never left Bush-Obama era politics, and they seem to think uttering the name of Guantanamo Bay will carry some sort of magic power or something. But the fact of the matter is that shtick isn't going to work anymore, because no one's forcing these people to illegally cross the border and commit heinous crimes. And frankly, if the media thinks it's going to stir up some sympathy for those types of criminals being kept in tents or something, they're in for a rude awakening.
There are lots of different sort of buckets of people, if you will. You're right now talking about, as you say, again, the worst of the worst, people who you say committed crimes. But it's still unclear how, first of all, whether there are 30,000 people who fit that description.
Right, correct.
Are there?
You know, we are going through the process of identifying those that are on our radar. You know, the president committed during the campaign that he believed we needed to have mass deportation. So we're going after those that have been the violent criminals perpetuating crimes in our communities, also those with final removal orders, and then we'll continue down the priority list.
And will they be held in the tents?
It's potentially, but we're going to keep people safe too. So it depends on how dangerous they are and how they act in these facilities. So we have beds in the United States today that we're using and will continue to use that are ICE detention facilities. But we've got a lot of local law enforcement, a lot of communities and states that want to partner with us too, saying we have facilities if you would like to partner. And I think that's fantastic, because that's really what we need is the federal government working with those local officials, because they know where these dangerous criminals are.
I just want to ask.
My goal is that people are not in these facilities for weeks and months. My goal is that there's a short-term stay. They're able to go incarcerate them, take them, follow the process, and get them back to their country.
That's your goal, but
yes.
You're not ruling out that they could be there for weeks.
I'm not going to rule that out, because we are going to continue to make sure that we're talking with every single country. Super thrilled that Secretary of State Rubio has been actively going out and negotiating, taking people home. So that's part of all the decisions on when we identify people in communities. As soon as we're able to go get them and return them back home as quickly as possible. So
liberals really can't decide on what argument to make here about immigration. On one hand, they'll try to argue that every single illegal is just a good person who's desperately fleeing some sort of life-death scenario in their home country. Yet simultaneously, simultaneously, if Trump or any conservative criticizes those countries in any way, shape, or form, that's considered hateful rhetoric. But the fact of the matter here is the American people are frankly tired of all this, and they're especially tired of media figures like Bash, who seem more concerned with the concept of illegals spending a few weeks in tents than entire generations of Americans who've had their futures stolen and leveraged for short-term political gains by career politicians and swamp creatures in Washington.
Elon Musk said, quote, FEMA is broken, and he said so in response to the suggestion that he shut down FEMA entirely. FEMA is, of course, funded by Congress, has repeatedly been authorized in statute. Can and should Donald Trump shut it down?
He can, and I believe that he will do that evaluation with his team, and he's talking about it, which I'm grateful for. He'll work with Congress, though, to make sure that it's done correctly and that we're still there to help folks who have a terrible disaster or crisis in their life. There's a lot of fraud and waste and abuse out there, and since President Trump has taken over and come back into this administration, we've seen incredible changes.
What's your recommendation to him? If the president came to you and said, you're my DHS secretary, do you think I should get rid of FEMA? Excuse me, get rid of FEMA, what would you say?
I would say yes, get rid of FEMA the way it exists today. We still need the resources and the funds and the finances to go to people that have these types of disasters like Hurricane Helene and the fires in California. But you need to let the local officials make the decisions on how that is deployed so it can be deployed much quicker, and we don't need this bureaucration that's picking and choosing winners.
You mentioned Congress. We're getting rid of FEMA. You're going to do it with Congress?
Oh, the president has been clear, too, that he wants to still help people. But what happened by targeting individuals, helping some people and not others? Listen, the president just in the last 5 days has closed 80% of the open cases in North Carolina. It's amazing when you have somebody who cares how quickly the response can be. And that wasn't the way that it was under the previous administration. There's people that had wildfires 7-8 years ago in the western United States still haven't received their FEMA payments. How are people supposed to pick up
I took a trip with the FEMA director.
Oh, you did?
She cared.
Gee, Dana Bash said the FEMA lady cared. So that must mean it's true. After all, she's only a dishonest mouthpiece for Democrats, so you know you can trust everything she says. I mean, call me crazy, but her saying that kind of sounds like an admission that something was wrong in the previous administration. Because if that FEMA lady really did care so much, why wasn't there more done to help people? It must have been due to bureaucratic red tape, incompetence, or corruption, which is precisely what Noem meant when she said she wanted to eliminate FEMA as it currently stands. And I've got to say, I absolutely love how shook Bash got by Noem mentioning Trump's successes in providing FEMA aid to North Carolina and victims of the LA fires, because that's not something you typically see mentioned on establishment media shows like this. So I really hope she keeps it up. But let me know what you think. How do you feel about Trump holding illegals in Gitmo? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!